the champagne. Toast was in full swing when my husband gripped my arm and whispered 5 words that shattered my reality. "We need to get your family out of here, right now." I stared at him, the festive noise around us suddenly muffled and distant. "What are you talking about? The wedding isn't even over." His eyes were deadly serious as they locked with mine. "You haven't figured it out yet, have you? The bride, she isn't real." What he told me next made my entire world collapse. Before I share this unbelievable story, let me know in the comments where you're joining from. If you've ever had that nagging feeling that someone close to you wasn't what they seemed, make sure you're subscribed. What we uncovered will change how you view trust forever. My brother Leo had always been my closest friend. Despite our 2-year age difference, when he announced his engagement to Sophia after a whirlwind 9-month romance, our entire family was thrilled. The destination wedding at a luxurious Napa Valley estate seemed like the perfect setting for their storybook beginning. My husband David and I arrived on a Thursday, 3 days before the Saturday ceremony. The property was stunning, rolling vineyards, elegant stone buildings, and gardens that looked professionally designed. Leo greeted us on the grand staircase, his face beaming with happiness. "You're going to adore her," he gushed, pulling me into one of his signature bear hugs. "Sophia is absolutely perfect in every way." I'd only met Sophia twice before, briefly at a holiday gathering, and again at their engagement party. Both times she'd been charming and polished, but our interactions felt somewhat rehearsed. Leo had met her at a gallery opening in San Francisco, and their relationship moved at lightning speed, engaged within months, and now this extravagant wedding that felt almost too perfect. "Your suite is in the main house's east wing," Leo explained as he showed us around. "Mom and Dad are opposite, and Sophia and I are staying in the separate cottage until the wedding, you know." Tradition. The room was breathtaking, with a 4-poster bed and French doors, opening to a balcony, overlooking the vineyards. "This place must have cost a fortune," David remarked, testing the luxurious bedding. "Her family is handling most of it," I explained. "Her father is some kind of international business magnate." The welcome dinner that evening felt like something from a film. Strings of delicate lights draped between ancient oak trees, long tables set with crystal and silver. Sophia made her entrance in a simple ivory dress that probably cost more than my car. Her blonde hair cascaded in perfect waves, and her smile seemed to illuminate the entire courtyard.
"Jessica," she exclaimed, rushing toward me with outstretched arms. "I've been so eager to really get to know you. Leo says you two were partners in crime growing up. I want to hear all your secrets." Her enthusiasm felt slightly overperformed, but I attributed it to wedding nerves. She turned to David with that same dazzling smile. "The brilliant architect. Leo told me you just won that prestigious award." "That's absolutely incredible." David seemed pleasantly surprised she'd remembered. "Thank you, and congratulations on your MBA from Stanford. Leo mentioned you're already being recruited by top firms." "Oh, that was nothing," Sophia dismissed with a graceful hand wave. "My father has excellent connections in the corporate world, so opportunities have always found me." Throughout the evening, I watched Sophia work the room with expert precision. She remembered everyone's names, asked thoughtful questions about their lives, and made each person feel uniquely special. She was particularly focused on my father, engaging him in detailed discussions about his technology investments. "She's quite impressive," David whispered as we watched her laugh at one of my father's stories. "She makes Leo happy." "That's what matters," I replied, though something about her polished perfection felt unsettling. The wedding rehearsal went smoothly the next day. Sophia directed everyone with quiet efficiency, a general disguised as a blushing bride. There was a strange moment when I slipped away to find a restroom and overheard her speaking in a hushed but intense tone in a side room. "I don't care about the complications, just make it happen," she was saying. "We're too close to let anything derail this now." When she noticed me in the hallway, her entire demeanor instantly softened. "Jessica, just dealing with a last-minute catering issue. Nothing for you to worry about." Her voice had returned to its melodic, cheerful tone. As she passed me, I noticed the phone in her hand had a distinctive green case. Later that afternoon, I saw her texting on a phone with a purple case. The observation nagged at me, but I dismissed it. Plenty of people separate work and personal devices. That night at the rehearsal dinner, Sophia gave a moving speech about finding her true home with Leo and our family. My mother dabbed at tears, and my father watched with clear approval. Everything appeared flawless. But walking back to our room that night, David was unusually quiet. "Did you enjoy everything?" I asked. "It was interesting," he replied thoughtfully. "Leo's friends are great, but but what? Some of the stories Leo tells about how they met don't quite match what Sophia's friends mentioned tonight." "Like what?" "Well, Leo says they met when he accidentally took her reserved taxi. But one of her bridesmaids said Sophia always tells it as spilling wine on him at a charity event." "That's odd," I acknowledged. "Maybe they're just remembering different parts of the same night." David nodded, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. Neither was I. The second day began with a sparkling wine brunch on the terrace. Sophia was already there, looking radiant and fresh despite the late night. "Good morning, you two," she called cheerfully. I asked the chef to prepare his famous avocado toast special for us today. Throughout the meal, I noticed Sophia checking her phone frequently, excusing herself periodically for calls. At one point, I went inside for a jacket and accidentally walked in on her having what sounded like an urgent conversation in a study. "We can't have any errors," she was whispering. "Everything must be finalized by Sunday. The access should be fully operational by then." When she saw me, she ended the call immediately. "Wedding coordinator," she explained with an eye roll. "There's always some drama to manage." I nodded, though I distinctly remembered her coordinator was a woman named Marie, and the voice I'd heard her address as darling had definitely been male. Back outside, I noticed Sophia was now using the purple-cased phone, not the green one from earlier. When she stepped away again, I mentioned the phone swap to David. "Maybe she has separate devices for different wedding planning teams," he suggested, though his expression told me he found it equally strange. The day continued with pre-wedding activities. Sophia had organized a vineyard tour for guests, while the wedding party had final dress fittings. As a bridesmaid, I spent the afternoon in a whirlwind of adjustments and styling. In the fitting area, I observed Sophia's interactions with her bridesmaids. Her suggestions carried the weight of commands, her compliments often containing subtle corrections. "Chloe, sweetie, that updo is so much more flattering than the style you originally wanted." "Thank goodness we made the change," she told one bridesmaid, who offered a weak smile in return. When the stylist proposed a minor alteration to Sophia's intricate hairstyle, her eyes flashed with brief anger before she composed herself. "Let's stick with the original vision," she said with a tight smile. "It's my special day, after all." During a break, I found myself chatting with Isabella, the maid of honor. When I mentioned Sophia's Stanford MBA, Isabella looked momentarily confused. "Stanford, I thought she went to USC," she said, then quickly added, "But I might be mixing things up with another cousin." She gestured to a small velvet box on the vanity. Inside rested a delicate gold bracelet with a single diamond. "It's a thank you for welcoming me so warmly into your family," she said, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. "Leo says you're his anchor, so your acceptance means the world to me." The generous gesture immediately made me feel guilty for my suspicions. "It's stunning, Sophia." "Thank you." The ceremony itself was flawless. Leo looked handsome and nervous in his tuxedo, and when Sophia appeared at the end of the aisle in her couture gown, the gathered guests released a collective breath of awe. My brother's face, as he watched her approach, showed such pure adoration that tears filled my eyes. Their vows were personal and moving. Sophia spoke about finding her sanctuary in Leo and our family, her voice catching with emotion at precisely the right moments. Watching them exchange rings, I consciously pushed my doubts aside. Clearly, this woman loved my brother. At the reception, Sophia was the quintessential bride. She floated between tables, charming every guest. She was particularly attentive to my parents, ensuring their glasses were always full and facilitating conversations with her family members. I say family members with reservation because I noticed something peculiar. Sophia seemed to have remarkably few actual relatives present. There was Isabella, the maid of honor, supposedly her cousin, and an older couple introduced as her aunt and uncle. Her parents were there, of course, her father, a distinguished man with silver hair who spoke little but observed everything intently. Where are all of Sophia's Stanford friends? I asked David as we danced. Or childhood friends? It seems like most guests are either her parents' associates or Leo's people. David's brow furrowed. I noticed that too. And have you detected how her accent seems to subtly change, depending on who she's speaking with? Now that he mentioned it, I had noticed that with my parents. Her speech had a slight California lift, but with her uncle, her cadence was distinctly different. Maybe she just unconsciously mirrors people, I suggested, though I didn't fully believe it. As the evening progressed, I observed Sophia carefully orchestrating interactions. She seemed particularly intent on keeping my father engaged with her own father. They appeared deep in discussion about investment strategies. Thomas, with your expertise in emerging tech and my international connections, we could build something extraordinary, Sophia's father was saying. My father, who had indeed made his fortune in technology ventures, nodded with growing interest. I've been looking for the right entry into those markets for years. The regulatory barriers have been challenging. I have methods for navigating those, Sophia's father replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Later, I noticed David taking photos with his phone, not typical reception snapshots, but deliberate images of Sophia with different groups. When I asked, he shrugged. Just preserving memories, he said, but the tension in his voice reminded me of his tone during difficult architectural reviews when he suspected a structural flaw needed confirmation. The celebration lasted well past midnight. Returning to our room, I felt exhausted but unsettled. Despite the apparent perfection, something felt fundamentally off. Did you have a good time? David asked as we got ready for bed. Yes, I said automatically, then corrected, mostly. Did you? He hesitated before answering. It was a very informative day. That ambiguous response hung between us as we fell into restless sleep. The post-wedding brunch was scheduled for 11 a.m. in the garden. Most guests appeared, moving slowly but gratefully accepting mimosas and coffee. Leo and Sophia held court at the center table, accepting congratulations and looking appropriately tired but blissful. Sophia had transformed again, now playing the gracious new wife in a simple linen dress, her hair in a casual ponytail. David had been quiet all morning, constantly checking his phone and stepping away for brief calls. When I asked who needed him so urgently, he gave vague responses about a project crisis. This was unusual. David was typically fully present during our vacations. We joined my parents at their table. They were still glowing with happiness for Leo. Isn't she magnificent? My mother said, nodding toward Sophia. So accomplished and graceful. Leo truly found his perfect match, and her father's business connections could be incredibly valuable. My father added in a lower tone. We had a fascinating discussion last night about potential partnerships. Dad, you're not seriously considering business with someone you just met, are you? I asked, alarmed. Charles isn't just someone. Jessica, my father replied, looking slightly offended. He's built an impressive global enterprise. We're meeting next week in Chicago to discuss specifics. Before I could respond, David's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. Excuse me, he murmured, standing and walking toward the lawn. Through the window, I watched him pace during an increasingly intense. When he returned 15 minutes later, his face was grim. Sophia approached our table just as David sat down. Thomas, she said to my father, I meant to ask your opinion on the modified Black-Scholes application for private equity. Dad mentioned you've had remarkable success with similar models. My father looked impressed and launched into a detailed explanation. What struck me as odd was that this was my father's proprietary adaptation, not public knowledge. How would Sophia know about it? As my father and Sophia discussed complex financial concepts, David leaned close to my ear. We need to leave. Immediately. His voice was urgent but low. I turned to him, stunned. What? We can't just walk out of brunch. Trust me, Jessica. We have to go. I'll explain everything, but not here. His tone made my stomach clench. Is it work? An emergency? No, he said, his eyes flicking meaningfully toward Sophia. It's about the bride. What are you talking about? I hissed, keeping my voice down. David's jaw tightened. You really haven't noticed? The bride. She's a complete fabrication. My blood ran cold. What he said next made my stomach drop. Sophia Montgomery doesn't exist. Your brother married a professional con artist who's been targeting your family, specifically your father, for the past year. I stared at him in disbelief. That's insane. How could you possibly know that? I'll show you everything, but we need privacy. Now. David stood abruptly, putting on a convincing performance of concerned professionalism. I'm so sorry, everyone. But I've just been called about a critical structural issue on my current project. We need to return to Chicago immediately. My mother looked disappointed. Oh, must you? Can't your partners handle it? It's a specialized design that only I understand, David explained smoothly. I wouldn't leave if it wasn't absolutely necessary. I watched in a daze as David made our excuses to Leo and Sophia. Sophia's expression was perfectly appropriate, disappointed but understanding. The concerned new sister-in-law. I was so looking forward to spending more time with you, she said, embracing me. But we'll have plenty of visits when you come to San Francisco. As she hugged me, I caught a flash of something in her eyes. A glimpse of calculation that chilled me to my core. 20 minutes later, we were in our rental car driving away from the estate. The moment we were out of sight, I turned to David. Explain. Now. David pulled over at a scenic viewpoint a few miles down the road. He took out his tablet and opened a folder of documents. I knew something was wrong from our first day here, he began. The small inconsistencies, the way she subtly manipulated conversations. It reminded me of a client I had years ago who turned out to be running an investment scam. So you decided she was a criminal because she reminded you of a shady client? I asked incredulously. No. I decided to investigate, because my instincts screamed that something wasn't right, David replied calmly. After the rehearsal dinner, I contacted an old friend who works in corporate security. He owed me a favor, and I asked for a discreet background check. You investigated my brother's fiancé without telling me. I was stunned. I hope to be proven wrong, David said. But what came back this morning confirmed my worst fears. Look, he handed me the tablet. On the screen was a driver's license for a woman named Cassandra Reed. The photo was unmistakably Sophia, though with darker hair. This is from 4 years ago in New York, David explained. She was married to a venture capitalist named Gregory Shaw. She vanished with over $3 million from their shared accounts right after he introduced her to his most valuable business contacts. I scrolled through more documents. Sophia with different hair colors and names, standing beside various men. News articles about elaborate financial fraud and missing funds. This can't be real, I whispered, though the evidence before me was overwhelming. My friend identified 3 confirmed identities she's used over the past 6 years. David continued. Sophia Montgomery, Cassandra Reed, and Elizabeth Blackwell. The pattern is always the same. She marries into wealth, integrates into the family's financial circle, then disappears with everything she can access. But why target Leo? He doesn't have millions. Leo was never the primary target, David said grimly. Your father was. Leo was simply her entry point. I sat in stunned silence, staring at the evidence. Police reports, news articles, even an Interpol notice about a woman matching Sophia's description wanted for questioning in connection with multinational fraud cases. According to my friend's research, she's been operating for at least 8 years, David explained. She typically works with a team people, posing as family members or business associates to establish credibility. The cousin, I murmured, remembering Isabella's confusion about which university Sophia had attended, and her parents' actors hired for the role. The man posing as her father has been linked to at least 3 other sophisticated scams. He specializes in targeting successful business owners, gaining their trust, then proposing investment opportunities that turn out to be elaborate fraud schemes. I scrolled through more documents, my hands trembling. A marriage certificate showed Cassandra Reed had married Gregory Shaw in New York 5 years earlier. Another showed Elizabeth Blackwell had married William Carter in Denver just 3 years ago. What happened to these men? Her other husbands? David's expression was somber. Financial devastation mostly. Shaw lost nearly everything and filed for bankruptcy. Carter recovered some assets because he realized what was happening faster, but he still lost over $2 million. And now she's targeting Dad, I said, the horrifying reality finally sinking in. That's why she's been so focused on his business, asking all those detailed questions about his investment strategies. Your father mentioned at brunch that he's meeting with her father next week to discuss investment opportunities. David reminded me. I suspect that meeting would have ended with him transferring substantial funds into accounts they control. I thought back to all the moments that had seemed odd but that I'd dismissed. Sophia's different phones, her shifting accent, the private conversations I'd overheard, her inexplicable knowledge of my father's proprietary business methods. We have to tell Leo, I said, my heart breaking for my brother and parents. We need to be strategic about this, David cautioned. People like Sophia War, whatever her real name is, War, experts at deflecting accusations. If we approach this incorrectly, she could disappear with whatever she's already accessed, or worse, convince your family that we're the ones lying. What do you suggest? We gather more concrete evidence, then present everything simultaneously. No warning, no opportunity for her to prepare a defense or escape plan. I nodded, though the thought of confronting Sophia filled me with dread. How do we get more proof? Your father's financial systems. Has Sophia had any opportunity to access his information? Passwords, account numbers. I thought carefully. Dad keeps everything on his secured laptop, and he's very cautious about security. But he mentioned yesterday that he was showing Sophia's father some projections for a potential collaboration. We need to verify if anything's been compromised, David said. And we need to move quickly. Based on what I've learned about her pattern, she typically makes her move within days of the wedding while everyone is still celebration mode. We drove to a nearby town and checked into a small inn to plan our next steps. David continued communicating with his security contact while I called a close friend who specialized in cybersecurity. Maya, I need an enormous favor, I explained, giving her a brief overview. Can you check if there's been any unusual activity on my father's systems? Maya was shocked but immediately agreed to help. My father had given Maya her first internship, and she remained deeply loyal to him. I'll need his authorization and access credentials, she said. This isn't strictly legal otherwise. I called my father, creating a story about David needing some financial modeling examples for a colleague and asking if Maya could access his templates. Dad agreed without hesitation, providing the necessary information. 2 hours later, Maya called back, her voice tense. Someone's been inside his system, she confirmed. They installed a sophisticated keylogger 3 days ago. It's been capturing everything: passwords, account numbers, communications with his financial institutions. My blood ran cold. Can you tell who did it? The intrusion originated from a device on the same Wi-Fi network as your father. So someone physically present at the wedding venue. I've disabled the keylogger and changed his critical passwords. But whoever did this already has extensive information. I thanked Maya profusely, promising a full explanation later. When I relayed this to David, his expression darkened. We need to return now, he said. Tonight, before they have a chance to use what they've gathered. We drove back to the estate, arriving just as dinner was concluding. I texted Leo asking him to meet us privately, stating only that it was urgent and concerned Sophia. Leo met us in the estate's library, his expression a mixture of concern and irritation. What's going on? Why did you leave so abruptly? And why all the secrecy? I took a deep breath. Leo, what I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear. But we have evidence that Sophia isn't who she claims to be. His face immediately hardened. What are you talking about? David stepped forward, opening his tablet. Sophia Montgomery doesn't exist. The woman you married has used at least 3 different identities over the past 6 years. She's wanted for questioning in multiple international fraud cases. Leo's laugh was dismissive. This is ridiculous. You've both lost your minds. Please just look at what we've discovered, I pleaded, gesturing to the screen. For the next 20 minutes, we showed Leo everything: the multiple identities, the pattern of marriages followed by financial devastation, the evidence of the keylogger on our father's computer. With each new piece of information, my brother's face grew paler. "This can't be real," he whispered. But I could see doubt beginning to penetrate his disbelief. "We've been together for almost a year. I would have known if something was wrong." "She's extremely skilled at what she does," David said gently. "These individuals are professionals. They create elaborate false histories and have teams supporting their operations." "If this is true," Leo said, his voice breaking, "then nothing between us was genuine. Nothing." The pain in his eyes was unbearable. I moved to comfort him, but at that moment, the library door opened. My father stood there, looking confused. "What's happening in here?" "Sophia said you all disappeared after dinner." Leo looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. I nodded. "Dad," he said, his voice steadier than I expected. "You need to see this. It's about Sophia." My father's reaction mirrored Leo's initial response, disbelief, followed by anger directed at us for making such outrageous accusations. But as David systematically walked him through our evidence, highlighting the unauthorized access to his computer and financial accounts, his expression shifted from anger to concern and finally to grim comprehension. "We need to confront her," my father said, his voice hard in a way I'd rarely heard. "Now, before this progresses further. We should contact the authorities," David suggested. My father shook his head. "Not yet. First, I want to hear what she has to say for herself." Leo had been silent for several minutes, staring at his wedding ring. "I want to be the one to confront her," he said suddenly. "Alone?" "Absolutely not," I responded immediately. "These people are dangerous, Leo." "She's my wife," he said, his voice cracking on the final word. "If anyone is going to demand the truth from her, it should be me." After discussion, we agreed on a compromise. Leo would confront Sophia, but the rest of us would be present. My father insisted on including my mother, believing she deserved to know what was happening. We gathered in my parents' suite, sending for Sophia with word of a family matter needing discussion. While waiting for her arrival, I pulled Leo aside. "Are you certain you're ready for this?" I asked, concerned about the hollow look in his eyes. "No," he admitted, "but I need to do it anyway." Sophia arrived looking appropriately concerned, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, her hair in a simple ponytail, the picture of a supportive new wife ready to help with a family crisis. "What's wrong?" she asked, her eyes moving from face to face. "Has something happened?" The room tensed with silence for a moment before Leo stepped forward. "We know, Sophia," he said quietly. "Or should I call you Cassandra? Or Elizabeth? Which name are you using these days?" Her expression flickered for just an instant, surprise, calculation, then back to concerned confusion. It happened so quickly I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching carefully. "Leo, what are you talking about? You're frightening me." David moved to the desk where his tablet was open. "We have documentation of your previous identities, marriage certificates, police reports, news articles about the men you've defrauded." Sophia laughed, but it sounded forced. "This is absurd. There must be some mistake. A case of mistaken identity, perhaps." "No mistake," my father said grimly. "We also have evidence that someone installed spyware on my computer during the wedding festivities. Someone attempting to access my financial accounts." She glanced toward the door, assessing her exit options. "Don't even consider it," I warned. "Security has instructions not to permit you to leave the property." This was a bluff. We hadn't actually spoken to security. But Sophia didn't know that. "I don't know what kind of cruel game you're playing," she said, her voice taking on a harder edge. "But I won't stand here and be accused of crimes I didn't commit." "Leo, surely you don't believe these lies." Leo's face was a mask of anguish. "I want to believe you, Sophia, more than anything. So explain this to me. Explain why there's a marriage certificate showing you married Gregory Shaw in New York 5 years ago under the name Cassandra Reed." For a moment, Sophia maintained her facade of outraged innocence. Then, seeing the unwavering certainty in our faces, something changed. Her posture shifted, her expression hardened, and it was like watching a mask disintegrate. "Well," she said, her voice entirely different now, clipped, cool, with a hint of an accent I couldn't place. "This is certainly unexpected. I underestimated you, David." She nodded at my husband. "Most people see only what they want to see." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Leo took a physical step backward as if her transformation had struck him physically. Why, he asked, his voice barely audible. Was any of it real? Sophia, or whoever she was, tilted her head, considering him. You were pleasant. I didn't dislike our time together, if that's what you're asking. But business is business. And what business is that exactly? My father demanded. Defrauding innocent people, destroying lives. She smiled, a cold expression that never touched her eyes. I prefer to think of it as asset redistribution. Men like you have more wealth than you could spend in multiple lifetimes. I simply help circulate it. To yourself, I said disgustedly. She shrugged. I provide a service. I make people happy. Give them what they desire. Love, validation, excitement. The fact that it comes with a price is merely commerce. Where are your accomplices? David asked. The people pretending to be your family. Already departed, she replied with a smirk. They left last night. Standard procedure after the main event. The calculated way she referred to the wedding as the main event turned my stomach. I couldn't imagine Leo's pain. You won't get away with this, my father said. We've documented everything. The police will do what exactly? She interrupted. Charge me with marrying a man who willingly shared access to his life? I haven't actually taken anything from you, Thomas. Not yet. And Leo signed a prenuptial agreement that's quite favorable to me. A prenup obtained under false pretenses with a fabricated identity. David pointed out. No court would uphold it. For the first time, Sophia looked slightly less confident. Perhaps. But prosecuting me would mean publicly admitting how easily you were all deceived. The media would feast on that story. Prominent Chicago investor Thomas Reed nearly scammed by sophisticated imposter. Is that publicity your firm needs? The room fell silent as we absorbed her threat. She was correct that a public scandal could damage my father's professional reputation. Clients might question his judgment. You're forgetting something, Leo said, his voice stronger now. The other men you've deceived. I'm guessing they chose not to press charges, for the same reasons to avoid humiliation. But together, that establishes a pattern. That's sufficient for federal charges. Sophia's eyes flashed with momentary concern before she composed herself. Well, this has been fascinating, but I think our relationship has concluded. She reached for her purse, which she'd placed on a chair. I'll be leaving now. You won't locate me, so don't bother attempting. Actually, my father said, pulling out his phone. While we've been having this conversation, my security team has been freezing all my accounts and notifying the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're quite interested in speaking with you. Now, genuine fear showed on Sophia's face. You're bluffing. My father simply held up his phone, displaying an email confirmation from the FBI, acknowledging receipt of his information. You have two choices, he continued calmly. Wait here for federal agents to arrive, or attempt to flee with nothing but what you're wearing. Your operation has been exposed. Your accomplices have abandoned you. It's finished. Sophia looked around the room, her composed facade crumbling as she realized she was trapped. Her eyes settled on Leo. I could have made you happy, she said. A final manipulation attempt. We could have had a good life together. Leo shook his head, his expression a mixture of disgust and pity. None of it was authentic. You never even existed. The hours following our confrontation with Sophia were a blur of police statements, FBI interviews, and shocking revelations. Her real name, we learned, was Natalia Volkova. Born in Moscow, she had been executing confidence schemes since her late teens, eventually graduating to elaborate marriage and investment frauds that brought her into our lives. The FBI had been tracking her network for years but had always remained one step behind. Her accomplices, the individuals who had posed as her family at the wedding, were professional con artists working with various crews internationally. Some had been identified by law enforcement, but most remained at large. Leo was devastated. The officers who took Natalia away had to physically support him as he watched his bride, of less than 48 hours, being placed in a police vehicle. The marriage would be annulled, of course, but the emotional damage couldn't be so easily undone. Wedding guests received a sanitized version of events that Sophia had misrepresented herself and the marriage was being dissolved. Most assumed it was some variety of green card scheme or hidden past that had been discovered. Only our immediate family knew the complete truth. In the subsequent days, we discovered how perilously close Natalia had come to success. The keylogger on my father's computer had captured sufficient information to potentially access accounts containing millions of dollars. Had we not intervened when we did, she and her team might have vanished with a substantial portion of my father's assets. I still can't believe I was so blind. My father said as we sat together a week after the wedding, "I'm supposed to be skilled at evaluating people. It's essential to my work." She was a professional, David reminded him. This is what she does, what she's been perfecting for years. You can't blame yourself. I keep reviewing every moment, every conversation, Leo said hollowly. He had moved temporarily into my parents' home, unable to face returning to the apartment he had shared with Natalia in San Francisco. Trying to identify signs I overlooked. There were indications, I acknowledged, but they were subtle, and she was expert at deflecting attention from them. The crucial thing is that she didn't succeed. The FBI investigation revealed that Natalia Volkova had been planning this operation for over a year. She had specifically targeted Leo after identifying our father as a valuable mark. His investment firm managed significant assets, making him an attractive target. She had created an elaborate false background complete with fabricated social media accounts stretching back years and paid actors to pose as references who could verify her story if anyone investigated. The most chilling discovery was a storage unit rented under one of her aliases. Inside were detailed dossiers on our entire family, our habits, preferences, vulnerabilities. She had studied us like laboratory specimens, identifying the optimal method to infiltrate our lives and gain our trust. In the months that followed, our family underwent a period of healing and reconstruction. My father implemented enhanced security protocols for all his accounts and business dealings. My mother dedicated herself to supporting Leo, arranging counseling and ensuring he wasn't alone with his thoughts for extended periods. David and I remained in Chicago for several weeks after the wedding before returning to our lives. We called Leo daily, sometimes just sitting in silence on the phone when he couldn't find words for his pain. Slowly, gradually, improvement came. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, Leo decided to relocate to Chicago to be nearer to family. He found a position at a tech startup and rented an apartment close to my parents' home. 6 months later, he went on his first date, casual coffee with a woman from his new workplace. It didn't lead to romance, but it represented a step toward normalcy. A year after the wedding, we gathered for a family dinner. It wasn't a celebration precisely, but an acknowledgement of how far we'd traveled. Leo was smiling again, telling jokes and discussing a promotion at work. My father had begun to trust his instincts again, though he now possessed a healthy skepticism that hadn't existed previously. "You know what I've learned from all this?" Leo said as we finished dessert. "It's not that people can't be trusted. It's that trust should be earned over time, not granted in a surge of emotion. And genuine love doesn't isolate you from your support system," my mother added. "It strengthens those bonds." David squeezed my hand under the table. In a strange way, the ordeal had fortified our marriage. His intuition and persistence had protected our family from catastrophe, and my faith in him had never wavered, even when the accusations seemed impossible to believe. The case against Natalia Volkova continued moving through the legal system. She had been connected to at least 6 other similar scams across the country, and prosecutors were confident she would face substantial prison time. Some of her accomplices had been identified and arrested, though the man who had posed as her father remained at large. The FBI suspected he was the mastermind of the operation, using younger women as the visible face of the scams while he operated behind the scenes. As for our family, we had emerged stronger and wiser. The experience had taught us to trust our instincts when something feels wrong, to look beneath perfect surfaces for the truth underneath, and most importantly, to hold tightly to the authentic connections that sustain us through life's most difficult challenges.